Good morning. Welcome to AP Computer Science A. Today we're going to go over section 6.1, one-dimensional arrays. So be sure to have your notes with you. Make sure that you have your repo open and ready to go. Type in your name, period, and don't forget to click submit once you are done so you can get credit for this assignment. So today we're going to be working with arrays. Now, in previous sections, every time we needed to work with a multitude of numbers, so let's say 5 different numbers, we needed to declare and initiate each of the numbers, each of the integers. So let's say the first one is 28. Then you need to go through the same process. B will be 10, int C will be 14, int D equals 6, and int F equals 9. And then we can work through those numbers. Arrays are going to give us the opportunity to be able to store all those numbers in one variable. So the way that we work with arrays is going to be int. Array is a class. And the way that we tell Java what to store is by placing int and then a bracket. We can store primitive types and non-primitive types, including strings. So we can store integers, doubles, booleans, floats, strings, hamburgers. But whenever we have an array, they all must be of the same type. You cannot store in one array, cannot store an integer and a double and a hamburger. They all must be of the same type. So therefore, we start by telling Java what is the type of primitives that we're going to store. In this case, it's going to be integers. Bracket means it's going to be an array. Then we're going to give the variable name, let's say nums. We're going to store numbers, integers. Then we're going to call the constructor, which is new. It's going to be int, bracket. And inside, we need to tell Java how many numbers we need to store. And we need to tell Java how many numbers every single time with arrays. So in this case, that's going to store 5 numbers. As soon as you declare and initialize your array, Java is going to initialize each of the numbers to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. If you are working with booleans, it's going to initiate each of them to false. If you're working with double, you'll be 0.0. If you're working with a string, you'll be to null. And we'll go over that in a few minutes. Now, it is important to understand how arrays work and how we can access arrays. So in this case, we have an array called num, and we have 5 numbers. So 5 elements, we call them elements, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. We haven't given them the value that we want. And the index is going to work the same way that when we're working with strings. It's going to start at index now 1, but it's going to start at index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. So therefore, even though that we have 5 elements in an array, the last one will be index 4. And now we can go through and change the value of each of the indexes that we need. So therefore, the name of the array is nums. And let's access index 0. And the first number that we want to set is to 28. Java is going to change this. And now that number will be 28. So now it's going to be 28, 0, 0, 0, 0. Let's go and change the index 1, the second number. It will be 10. So now Java is going to be 10, 20, 10, 0, 0, 0. Those are the new numbers in the array. And then we can continue and in nums index 2, which will be the third number, and that'll be 14. nums3, and that'll be 6, and nums4, which is the fifth number, index 9, in the value of 9. And now we have an array made of 28, 10, 14, 6, and 9. The index for each one is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So therefore, if you want to be able to access the fourth number, let's go and say we want to print it. It will be system.out.println. And to print it, will be nums, the name of the array, in the index. If we want to print the fourth number, that'll be index 3. And when we print it, it should print a 6. Perfect. Now we can do several things with the elements in an array. We can increase them by 1. So let's say we want to be able to increase the fourth element by 1. We can just do equals nums plus 1, or we can just do correct. We can just do plus plus. If we print the element once again, therefore now it should be able to print to 7. So therefore we increase the element to 7. We can also decrease it if we want. And that should be 5. Now, it is important that whenever you're working with questions that you are doing multiple operations, it is a good idea to be able to write it down, create your array, place your index, and place all of your elements, and you are switching each of the values in the array, whether you can cross it out or rewrite them. Otherwise, it gets a little complex, and every point on your AP exam counts. So those are the little strategies. If you actually taken the time to write them down, though, that will pay off. Or if you want, we can place num3 equal to, or the element in index 3 to nums index 0 plus nums index 1. So therefore, that'll be 28 plus 10 will be 38. So now will be 28, 10, 14, 38, and 9. So therefore, if I print the third, in the index 3, the fourth element, you'll print to 38. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that we can actually create arrays in a much faster manner. If we know what the elements are going to be inside the array, what we can do instead, we can assign the correct values to the array list by placing the numbers as a set that you guys have seen in math. So it'll be your curly braces, it'll be 28 for the first number, 10, 14, 6, and 9. And therefore, we can run and go through the same process. So arrays can be declared and initialized in two different manners. You can go through the process and use the word new, where you're not too sure of the values that are going to be in the array. You press 5, will be the size of the array, and then you can enter each of the numbers one at a time. Or you can place your curly braces If you know the values ahead of time, then you can just place those 5 numbers into your array. If you have a 6 number, then you can enter it there. And Java knows that now it needs to be able to create an array made up of those 6 numbers. Now remember that once you create an array and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the index will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're now able to increase the number of integers that it can hold. So you can't say, well, I have one more, so now I need to be able to have 7 integers in there. No. Once you create it, it is set in stone, and you cannot change the size of the array. So you're gonna say, well, yes, then why will I ever do this? Why will I create an array in such a manner? So let's say that you are getting input from your user, and you're going to be asking for 5 different numbers. First, you can ask them for the length of the array, and you can place that variable here, and then you can go ahead and start typing the numbers as they enter them. So that's one way that we can actually just have to create it one at a time. But it is a little more efficient if you know how many numbers are going to be in the array to just go ahead and place them all at once. It's a lot faster. Now, one thing to keep in mind is as we are using methods that we are going to send in the parameter of an array. So let's go and say we're going to create a method, and we're just going to change the value of one of the numbers. We'll do more challenging stuff as we go into for loops and how to iterate through an array on the next 2 sections. But for now, let's go and do a public static void method that is going to just change the value. So public static void, and that's going to change value. And we're going to take in an array of integers, so be int, and we're going to give it a name, so be n. So let's go and send in an array. So let's go and go over to line number 25, and let's get rid of line 26. So we're going to change line 26, and we're going to say change value, and we're going to send in as the argument is going to be nums. And let's go and change the 3rd number. So now we cut it as a formal parameter. So now the name of the array is going to be n. So now to be able to change the 3rd number will be n bracket. So the 4th number, the index 3, we want to change it to 100. And if I run it, notice that the value, even though we did not return the array, the method is void, we did not return anything because it's an object. Therefore, if we change anything inside a method, it automatically will be changed in the array. So now that will be 100. So that's something for you to keep in mind. Anything that you change in a method of the array, you don't need to return it. It's automatically going to be changed. The same way that we saw when we work with objects. We can also store strings. So let's go through and place a list of strings. And let's start by doing all of the months. So now let's go and change it to months. And let's go and type in all of the months. If you guys remember on one of the exercises that you guys did, you created a method where you send in the integer and then you have to tell what month it was, correct? So we're going to do the same thing. So arrays are going to allow us to be able to simplify. Now this is an array of strings, so I need to be able to change this to string. Bracket will tell us an array. Months will be the name of the array. We can use the keyword new and say 12, but we already know the names of the months, so we're just going to type them in braces. So it'll be January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and one last one will be December. And now, if you want to be able to print the first month, we can just say index 0 months. And that will be printed as January. So therefore, if I don't want to be able to print the 12th month, so therefore, we can actually even do an if statement and just say include it. And instead of going through this whole process of typing if statements for each one, we can just actually, instead of doing an if statement, we can just say the name of the month. If we actually wanted to match, we can actually just increase this to an empty string for the first one. So if you want that 12 month, we can just type in 12, and it'll be a much easier process than what we have done before. And that should be December if it does. Remember that there are 12 strings in there. Well, actually 13 now, right? So from 0 all the way up to 11, 12. So there are 13 strings in there because we include the empty string. If we actually try to reach index 13, which will be the 14th word, there's not such a thing. So that's going to give you out of bounds. Right? Out of bounds exception. So something for you to keep in mind is that how many elements you have and that the index goes from 0 all the way to the very end. In the same manner, we can change in value of months. In this case, if we're actually going to change one of the months, and we're going to say, no, the change value, we are going to take in a array of strings. It's going to be n, and we're going to say the third number instead of, or the second month, be 0, 1, 2. We're going to say just it's going to be abbreviated to Feb. So therefore, once we print the third word, the third string, which is index 2, right now it's going to print to February. If we call the method change value and we send in the array, which is called months, we are going to receive it up here, the array of strings, and we are going to name it n. We change it to Feb. So therefore, if we actually print, it's going to be changing as well. Now it's going to be Feb. We can also create an array of objects. So let's go make an array of hamburgers. So let's go and just make 2 hamburgers. We're going to call the first constructor, making a single with tomato. And then let's make a double with no tomato. And we're going to hold them inside the array. So it's going to be an array that's going to contain hamburger, Then hams will be the name of the array. And we're going to, do we know how many hamburgers we want? Let's go and say we don't know. So we're just going to say, call the constructor new hamburger. And let's say we just want two. We just don't know what they are going to be. Remember that you do need to be able to tell Java how many objects you're going to have in there, or how many primitive numbers or booleans you're going to have in there. That's what we're going to do too. Let's go and create our first hamburger. Hams is going to be an index 0. And it's going to be new hamburger. And we're going to call the first constructor. Now, if we run it, and let's go and print or let's do the second hamburgers. We'll come back to that in a second. 1 equals new hamburger will be a double with no tomato. And now we're going to run it. It's just going to create them. So, but let's go and print them out. System.out print ln, and we're going to print the first hamburger. And it prints the first hamburger, patty, and cheese. If we want to be able to print the second hamburger, second hamburger will be in index 1. You print the first one and then print the second one. Now, if you actually don't initiate your second hamburger, you tell it that you have 2, but you only create 1, what is going to happen? It's going to give you the first hamburger, and then you can't see it here, so let me just create a few. What did it happen on your screen? Here's the first hamburger, and there's going to be no. So therefore, if you don't initiate, the same way that when we work with integers, as soon as you create it, it made them 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 for each of the values. Whenever you create an object or whenever you create a string, it's going to give you null, 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 null. And once you create them, it's actually going to be able to place each of the hamburgers in its place. And the last thing that we're going to cover today. So we can actually create the hamburgers. We actually know that we want 2 hamburgers and the type of hamburgers that we want. We actually can also use the braces. We can actually just use the braces here and say we want to create a new hamburger, and we're going to store on the first index, and then we're going to create our second hamburger, and we're going to create on the index 1 on the second spot, and now that will create them in there. We have an extra parenthesis, and that should be a brace, correct? There you go. So arrays can be done in 2 different ways. We can actually create them using by telling Java how many hamburgers we have, and then creating each of the hamburgers separately. Or we can use the braces, just like we did with integers, strings, and now hamburgers. So this will conclude the lesson for today. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.